Claire Whitmore had always believed her family was built on love. Sunday dinners, vacation photos, and long talks with her mother made it feel real, unshakably real. But love built on lies is a house of cards. And when it falls, it doesn't just break, it destroys. It began on an ordinary Thursday, with an envelope. Claire was cleaning out the attic, sorting through boxes of her late grandmother's things, when she found a thick manila envelope with her name on it, written in her grandmother's unmistakable cursive. Inside were a stack of papers and a single Polaroid photo. The papers were hospital documents, birth records, legal adoption agreements, DNA reports. Every page said the same thing in different ways. Claire Whitmore was not who she thought she was. The woman she called Mom hadn't given birth to her. The man she called Dad hadn't adopted her legally. And the name she had written on every form since kindergarten, Claire Elise Whitmore, was never hers to begin with. Her hands shook as she read her own name next to the words, unlawful guardianship. The Polaroid dropped to the floor, an old photograph of a baby in a hospital crib. Taped to the back was a note in her grandmother's hand. Forgive me. I couldn't take this secret to the grave. Claire felt her lungs collapse. The silence in the attic was deafening. Her entire life was a carefully curated performance, one she never knew she was starring in. But why? Why the lies? And who were her real parents? She stormed downstairs, papers in hand, rage burning through her veins. Her parents, Margaret and David Whitmore, were in the kitchen, sipping wine like it was any other day. Claire slammed the documents on the table. Margaret's face drained of color. David didn't even pretend to be surprised. You weren't supposed to find that, Margaret whispered. Claire's voice cracked. So it's true? Everything? You lied to me my entire life? David sighed, rubbing his temples. We did what we had to. You were better off with us. Better off being lied to? Being kidnapped? It wasn't kidnapping. Margaret's voice rose, panicked. We saved you. You were going to end up in the system. Your mother, she didn't want you. How do you know that? Claire's voice trembled. Did you ever even try to find her? Neither of them spoke. That silence was her answer. Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling with 100 versions of her life unraveling in her head. The bedtime stories her mother used to tell her. The piano lessons her father paid for. The way they smiled in family portraits. Every memory turned sour. By morning, she had packed a duffel bag and left without saying goodbye. She needed answers, real ones, not the ones built on guilt or good intentions. Claire drove 6 hours to a small town outside Richmond, Virginia. It was where her grandmother used to live, and based on the documents, where her biological mother had last been listed, in a long-forgotten address scribbled in the margins. The house was still there. Run down, weather-beaten, a mailbox hanging off its hinges. An elderly man answered the door. His eyes, glassy with cataracts, widened when she introduced herself. Claire, he whispered. You're her. You're Amy's daughter. Amy. Her real mother's name. Where is she? Claire asked. The old man's smile faded. Amy passed away 3 years ago. Breast cancer. She talked about you until her last breath. Claire staggered back as if punched. The man guided her inside, showed her photos, framed and dusty, of a young woman with the same almond eyes and dimpled chin. Amy looked radiant, wounded, hopeful. In one picture, she was holding a stuffed giraffe. Claire recognized it immediately. It sat on her own bookshelf at home. I don't understand, she whispered. They said she didn't want me. The old man, Amy's father, her grandfather, shook his head with tears in his eyes. Amy gave you up after the birth because she was 17. She planned to get you back once she was stable. But when she went to the foster system, you were gone. No trace. She searched everywhere, filed reports, hired a PI, but nothing ever came of it. It broke her. Claire's knees buckled. Her parents hadn't saved her. They'd stolen her. And her real mother had died thinking her daughter was lost forever. The grief came in waves. Grief for the woman she never got to meet. Grief for the girl she used to be. Grief for every lie she was ever told. But grief wasn't all she felt. There was rage. And it wasn't going away. Claire returned to New York a different person. The girl who had left was broken, grieving, betrayed. The woman who returned was razor sharp with a plan carved out in her bones. She didn't cry when her mother called, pretending nothing had happened. She didn't flinch when her father texted, "Hope you're okay. Let's talk soon." She blocked them both. Then she unblocked them. She wanted them to see. To watch. To feel the slow, surgical slice of the truth unraveling, just like they had unraveled her entire life. Claire moved in with a friend in Brooklyn and took a job at a nonprofit, one that worked with adopted children reconnecting with their birth families. Every story she heard only fueled her fury. Every reunion reminded her of what was stolen. Every child reminded her of herself, except most of them still had time. Claire's time had been stolen. It took 6 weeks to execute the first phase. Her parents, Michael and Teresa Hayes, were respected, beloved in their neighborhood. Church-going, charity donating, Christmas cards sending people. Claire knew how to dismantle that image. After all, she was their daughter. She started anonymously, leaking public records, sharing snippets of the adoption fraud to online forums, using burner emails to reach out to journalists. She attached the legal proof she had. She let curiosity do the rest. Within days, whispers began. People started asking questions. Claire watched it all from a distance, sipping her tea like poison. Then she took it a step further. She sent every photo, every court paper, every handwritten note from Amy, her mother, to the local pastor, the WA president, and Michael's company board. She didn't stop at emails. She mailed them. Beautifully wrapped packages with ribbons and sweet little notes. Thought you should know the truth about your favorite family. Her parents tried to get ahead of it. Michael gave vague interviews about misunderstandings and private matters. Teresa posted cryptic Bible verses on Facebook. But the narrative had already slipped from their hands. 1 week later, Claire walked into their church on a Sunday morning. Heads turned. Gasps echoed. She stood tall in a navy blue coat, holding the photo of Amy cradling her as a baby. When her father tried to speak, she handed it to him. "Give that back to the woman you stole me from." Her mother looked like she might faint. Claire didn't stay. She walked out as the church descended into whispers. A modern-day exorcism with no holy water, just truth. But that wasn't enough. She needed to feel it. The way they'd made her feel, small, powerless, erased. So, she gave an interview. Not to tabloids, to a respected national podcast on adoption fraud. She told her story in full. With names. And when the episode aired, it went viral. Comments flooded in. Strangers offered support. Others demanded an investigation. Lawyers reached out. Amy's name trended. Claire finally felt her voice was louder than their lies. She hadn't just exposed them. She had dismantled them. One evening, weeks later, she stood at Amy's grave with sunflowers in her hand. "I did it," she whispered. "They can't hurt anyone else now." There was no response, but the wind shifted, soft and gentle. A peace she hadn't felt in years settled in her chest. She smiled. Not because she'd won, but because she'd reclaimed her life. She walked away, not as a daughter stolen, but as a woman reborn.